Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Nationals podcast. Today is the 15th of May, 2022. On today's show, we're recapping the Nationals and Astros series from over the weekend, some observations from this 2019 World Series rematch. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline and BetOnline.net. All right, let's get to that series, talk about what happened, what went down, positives, negatives, all that's coming up and more on today's show.
Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, Josh Neighbors here, folks, Locked On Nationals podcast, May 15th, Sunday after the Nationals series. Before we get into things, make sure you follow us on Twitter at LO_Nationals. You all can follow me at Josh Neighbors_. You all can find the show wherever you get your podcast, and you all can find us on YouTube as well. Also one more thing. Send us questions on these videos. We like that. A lot of more interaction, the better, honestly. That helps us, kind of do the job a little bit better. So more interaction. We love it. I love the stuff. All right. So as we always do, we take a look at where the Nationals are after the series are over, and this series is over. The Nationals are 12-24. They have a .333 winning percentage. They are 11 games back of first place of the New York Mets, who came up short in a comeback today, lost their first series of the year. So the Nats are 11 games back of them, of the Marlins. They play this week. They are 4.5 back of the Braves, and they are 6 back of the Phillies, who have won 4 in a row and have cut the division lead to just 5 games. The Nats are 5-15 at home. They have a -36 run differential. They have lost 1. That's the current streak, and they are 3-7 in their last 10. Now, the good news is their run differential is it's only the third worst right now. The good thing is, their offense is semi-decent, all right? They're actually outscoring the Marlins and the Braves. They're outscoring every team in the National League Central except for the Milwaukee Brewers, and they're outscoring only one team in the National League West. So, I mean, they're not like this awful offense. That's the good news. The problem is the runs they're giving up, and some of the games not very competitive. So this weekend, World Series rematch from 2019. I felt like this series just had a bit more juice than some of the Nationals' other series so far this season. I think that's pretty fair to say. Now, I wasn't at the ballpark. Once again, if you guys were and you're listening wherever, let me know. Let us know how the energy was. But it felt like the energy was there, and it should be, right? Even if the crowds were still smaller than for a better team. The energy, I thought, was there clearly for two teams that obviously have a history. Now, I mentioned this on the preview show, previewing this series, that the Astros have retained so much of that 2019 World Series team. They've done a great job of core building and core retention for a lot of the guys up and down their lineup, and some of the arms as well. Maybe not as much in the arms. There's been a bit more turnover, especially in the starting side for their arms, and even in the bullpen as well. But that lineup has added guys, but it really feels like their core. And I know guys like George Springer are gone, but it feels like their core is still there. So they've retained so much of that. You look the other way, look at the Nationals. So much of it's changed, right? I mean, there are very few guys that remain from that team. The Sotos of the world, the Eric Fetties of the world, the Austin Voths of the world. I mean, it's a short Victor Robles of the world. I mean, it's a short list of guys that are still with the Nationals, and that just speaks to where both these teams are, right? Astros, I wouldn't say clinging to their title window, but trying to readjust on the fly and bring up the new guys to supplant the old guys and keep the core together. So they're trying to keep that thing as a machine and feeding that machine. The Nationals, they were, not as successful as the Astros were. But the Nationals had a machine there for a good part of the the aughts, right? They had a run where the Washington Nationals were consistently making the playoffs. They were there every single year. And remember this, I mean, the Astros had a downturn. I guess I'm trying to think about how long ago it was, but remember when they were, had the cover of the guys on Sports Illustrated. Like, this is a team, in the Nationals or in the Astros, and both teams, honestly, and have kind of mirrored each other in a lot of ways. And so you think about the Nationals, they had that window and it felt like they should have won more, but they didn't. And so you go back to, 2012, they won the NL East. 2013 won the NL East. 2016, the NL East. 2017 won the NL East. 2019, they won the NL East, right? So, this was a stretch where it was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 division championships in a 7-year window between 12 and 19. So that was kind of them feeding that machine. Now, I think the Astros might be able to keep this one together a bit longer than the Nationals did, but, they got a World Series out of it, and the Nationals did too. And so they're kind of in those latter stages of their cycle in terms of a team. And it just shows you, that they've kept those guys around who won in 17. It's been really difficult for them to get back there. It's just, that's the nature of the game, but they've been close a few times. So just kind of that was always in the back of my mind as I was watching this series this weekend. Not sure how you all felt about it. That was just kind of there for me. All right, let's break down the games. We usually work back to backwards, forward. So we'll start with the Sunday game, work to the Friday game. First, a quick word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline and BetOnline.net. You guys go to BetOnline.net today. You all can bet on the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs, MLB games, NASCAR, F1, boxing, MMA. It's all there for you guys. It's a good layout too, good interface, not tough to manage at all. Some of these betting websites just have horrible interfaces. Not Bet Online. They're just clean. It's crisp. It's got a good search bar. You can find whatever you all want there at Bet Online and BetOnline.net today. Bet Online, it's where the game starts, folks. All right, so let's talk about these games this weekend. So game one of the series, the Astros win by a score of 6-1. So the big story in this game, from the Nationals' perspective, right? Josiah Gray. It was the Josiah Gray start, and he struggled. And credit the Astros, all right? We hate saying that here, but credit the Astros for jumping all over Josiah basically from the word go. I mean, that first inning surrenders 5 runs and puts the Nats behind the 8 ball. They did it in a variety of ways, but he was just leaving pitches with too much plate. And I had mentioned this in the preview. It's a great challenge for a guy like Josiah Gray when you hand him a situation where you say, all right, you've been pitching well lately. Here is a really strong lineup that's been, they were gangbusters, right? Won 10 straight games. And they ended up making it 11 because of how well or poorly, I guess you could say, Josiah Gray pitched. And it showed, he ends up surrendering 3 home runs. And so as well as he's pitched in the previous 2 games, and he's been solid, I guess, so far this year is the right way to say it. He ran into a hot lineup that was hunting, and they got him. They 6 hits, 6 earned runs, so it's not a ton of hits, but 3 home runs on the night. And that's what ends up doing him in this game. He settled in after that 5-run first inning, but he already gave up the 5 runs. So how much of a settling in credit do you get? Not very much. And once again, there were some difficult pitches. I saw one, I forget who hit it down the line. Maybe it's Bregman, I'm not sure. In the first inning, like tough pitch to hit, and he went and grabbed it and sent it down the left side. So, it wasn't all Josiah Gray. There was a lot of, good quality hitting, but they were taking him to deep center. I mean, we saw Altuve go to deep center. We ended up seeing Brantley hit the next one over Victor Robles' head out there in center field. So this was, and then I think it's Jordan Alvarez who goes deep to center field as well. Like, these games do happen. I like the fact that he settled in afterwards. But I just think just a better team got him. And I think it's a learning experience. As much as we discredit Eric Fetty sometimes for nibbling far too much, nibbling far, far and away, way too much, there is some nibbling that has to happen against a team that's as dialed in as the Astros are. Actually, I thought you saw it today with Justin Verlander. I thought Justin Verlander did a really good job. Now, part of it's a control issue, but he wasn't just, going down Main Street most of the time to get these Nationals hitters. Now he kind of transitioned to that, but in the first inning, he was not trying to let this team stay hot. And also part of it was control as well. But he walked a bunch of guys, but wasn't surrendering hits. And that was part of it. He just didn't want to allow this team to continue, how well they've hit. And a consequence of that, he walked guys. And that's Eric Fetty does the same thing too. He walks guys as well. But you kind of almost wish there was a bit more of that, a bit more being careful as opposed to Josiah Gray just straight up taking on the challenge. On the other side, thought Framber Valdez was really strong. 7 2/3, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 6 Ks, 105 pitches. So the Nationals were putting pressure on him. They were getting guys on. The first 4 guys all got hits in this game, and then Nelson Cruz's 2-hit game has raised his average some. But he did a good job working his way out of any situation, any difficult spot he was in. I thought Valdez was really locked in, and it showed. So a really good outing from Framber Valdez there. Let's have some fun, though. Let's talk about game number 2 of this series. Take a quick sip here. All right, so game number 2 of the series. 13-6, a Nationals win. I have to be honest. This one felt good because I think it was, it was just pounding the Astros. Like, I think a lot of people enjoy that feeling. I think for the Nationals, too, just to be able to snap their 11-game winning streak and do it in really convincing fashion, right? And not a night where they needed the bullpen to be really good or the starting pitcher to be really good. They put up 13 runs. They went out there on offense and they were dialed in from the word go. And you look up and down the lineup, a lot of guys who had nice games. I mean, Soto goes, 1 for 3 with a couple walks. Josh Bell, not a great game, 1 for 5, but Nelson Cruz, 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs. Yadiel Hernandez goes 2 for 5 with 4 RBIs. K-Barrett Ruiz gets a pair of hits. Maikel Franco gets a pair of hits. D. Strange Gordon even got a hit. 2 hits for Victor Robles. Like, this was just the all-around game they needed. Also, the big thing, we mentioned this a lot, they were 5 for 11 with runners in scoring position. And the Astros were 5 for 12. It's pretty good by them. But, it just didn't matter because the Nationals were so, dialed in. And not just on Christian Javier. I mean, Maton in there too and Taylor. And they rocked both those guys. So they were able, from the outset, to get things going on offense. And I just think this was a fun night just to see everything going. And, look, I'll be honest, man. We've had a conversation about Maikel Franco. And it's been a really interesting one to have. And, he goes 2 for 5 in that game. And, once again, he is putting a lot of pressure on Carter Keeban when he comes back to play well. I'm going to mention this once again. We thought one of these guys was going to hit. A D. Strange Gordon was going to hit. We thought somebody, from that kind of realm that the average guys are bringing in was going to be good, was going to be strong for them, out of that's like Lane Thomas's of the world. Not all guys they brought in, but, somebody was going to emerge from that group and give you some quality stuff. And Cesar Hernandez, I'll even lump in there too. I mean, I know you get the major league contract right off the bat, but I think this was, something that, hey, look, he is a guy who will strike out a lot. Yes. But his aggression level, and people say aggressiveness. I don't really just say aggression. He has really been up there. And look, he's not somebody that's hitting for a ton of average. It's not his job. He's going out there and trying to make something happen in the back part of the lineup. And he's hitting 273. And, he's second on the team in terms of runs batted in for the Nationals now. I mean, that's where he's gotten himself to on this season. And, that's, I mean, I'd argue he's made himself an invaluable part of this lineup now. I kind of go back and forth on this, but, I'm not sure you can get rid of him. Or if you get rid of him, you should put him in the, we'll see what happens here, the DH spot. But Maikel Franco has hit so well now to where, not only is it pressure, but it feels like a guy that, they either have to flip or they have to, if they keep him around and give him a contract, obviously you don't want to give him, give him too much money, but, they've got options, right? D. Strange Gordon's not giving you options. The kind of runs its course at the end of the year and it's going to be over. Maikel Franco gives you options. You could trade him. You could play him at third. You could DH him if you trade Nelson Cruz. You could pinch hit him, whatever. He has made himself now, I'm not going to say invaluable, but just valuable generally. And that's what these teams need. That's what teams who are at the kind of lower tier right now need, either to use those guys to build or use them to build by trading them for prospects. So I don't think it can be it can't be diminished how important a guy like Maikel Franco is. And he just kind of highlights a reason why the Nationals were able to put up runs last night. Sure, some of the heavy hitters came up, but Ruiz and Franco in the back end, a young guy and a guy you took a chance on getting done. It's good stuff. All right, one more word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Go to built.com today. It's built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15, LOCKED15, LOCK15. Friends, you have to try these birthday cake puffs they have. They're delicious. They're also like, one of these protein bars that it tastes delicious, but it's not bad for you. It tastes like candy bar, but it's not candy bar ingredients. All right, jam-packed with protein, not many net carbs. You all can enjoy them worry-free. Built.com today. That's built.com. Promo code LOCK15, LOCKED15, LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com today. All right, so fun pitching matchup today in the final game of the series. The Astros take the series as they take game 3, 8-0. These games weren't wildly competitive, to be honest, for the most part, which made this not as interesting, I guess, as it could have been. So Patrick Corbin has a really interesting start. Through 5 innings, he surrenders only 2 runs, but goes back out there in the 6th and surrenders 3 home runs in that inning. Final stat line: 6 innings, 6 hits, 5 runs, all earned, and then 5 Ks on the day and 86 pitches. He was managing things really well. Didn't walk anybody until I think that 5th inning. And, the ball was traveling today, obviously, very well, too. His starts have been consistently getting better. This was one of those where if it wasn't a guy you're paying $24 million a year, you might be like, we'll take the 5 innings. You did a great job, if you're volatile, whatever. They had to send him back out there, and he got touched up again in that 6th inning. And so it's about limiting those. And I've mentioned that before. If you all are new to the podcast, there were a few of those games last year where it looked like, through 5 2/3, through 5 1/3, Corbin was fine. It was actually doing okay, or through 4, whatever it was. But that last inning just got him. It just blew up in that final inning. And that's been a challenge. It's been a real challenge for him. And this was one of those where, it wasn't just 1 inning, but it kind of blew back on him over the course of the latter part of his start. Finishing strong is always something that we talk about on this show, and that's why maybe Dave Martinez has such a quick hook for some of these starters. He doesn't want to press his luck. Well, when the guy's being paid $24 million and be another $25 million next year, and then whatever it is, the following season up in the 30s, I mean, you should pressing your luck. You shouldn't feel like you're pressing your luck. It should be a game where he goes out there and you feel like, he performs or doesn't, keep giving up dingers. So I thought there were a lot of encouraging parts of his start today. It's just that later part of the game, man. I mean, that the 5th, the 2-run home run, Maldonado, who sucked this year, just crushed that ball. It was left over the middle of the plate, 106 exit velo, 423, and then Gurriel goes deep, 373. And then also McCormick gets the home run in the 7th inning when Patrick Corbin comes out, because he's like 80-some pitches and there's only 3 runs. But that's a part of the game, in the 7th. Maybe you think about doing it, but you do press your luck because it is a guy like Patrick Corbin, and his pitch count was not that high. So I get why Dave Martinez is doing that. He should be able to do that for a guy like a Patrick Corbin. It just didn't work out. And then Justin Verlander, after that 1st inning where things got dicey, or even in that 1st inning when things got dicey, he just started attacking, and he ends up he got Soto out with a pop-up. He got Josh Bell out with a K, I think. And, it was just really effective from there on out. I mean, only surrendered 2 hits, 5 Ks now, 107 pitches to get him through 5. And he was laboring this game. The Nationals made him work. They just didn't make him pay. I will say, and then he settled in right after the walks and everything like that happened. We're having Matt Wyrick on next couple days, as we do every single week. Big thing we're going to talk about is the Soto approach. So Juan is getting cheated more often than not. I forget what the count was last night. He had a count where he was, I think, 3-0 or 3-1, and then popped out. And then he popped out twice last night, about last 2 at-bats. Today, he was up 3-0 he was up 3-0 on Verlander and wasn't able to make anything of it. So I want to talk to Matt about Soto's approach and kind of ask him, all right, so what's different? Because I've said all offseason that Soto rarely gets cheated. Well, he's letting pitchers get back at him a lot more in counts than he has in the past. It looks like he's pressing a bit too much at times and not seeing the ball as well as we're accustomed to seeing Juan Soto see the ball, if you will. But Astros pitching was phenomenal today. Nationals offense really could not get going. 0 for 5 runner scoring position. Rafael Montero, old friend from the Mets, comes back in. Stanek and Abreu also pitched today as well and were really strong. That bullpen for the Astros has been very good. They've been really good this year overall. So Nats dropped 2-3. Nothing that's so shocking. But I think that the Soto stuff and Maikel Franco are two things that we're gonna talk about with Matt and about where we go with those. Obviously where we go with here. Like Maikel Franco is more the where do we go with here type thing. Soto is a hey, what's up? Because his numbers are still like not horrible. This is not a guy who's out. He's struggling for Juan Soto, but this is not a guy who's putting up poor numbers on the season. He's still hitting 260 with a 394 on base, 11 runs driven in, 8 of those via the home run. So it's just going to be an interesting thing to talk about and get Matt's thoughts on that. All right, that will do it for today's show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at @LO_Nationals. You guys can follow me at @JoshNeighbors_. You all can find the show wherever you guys get your podcast, and you guys can find the show on YouTube as well. Till next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.